Today we're going to be talking about phone chroma. So a year ago, last year at NWFA, we actually launched chroma, our waterborne coloration system, or SANE. And it's been a good year so far. We been out there
Audio, right?
training, working with contractors for their first time using this, just to, with any new products. There's always a little learning curves. But we really feel like water-based stain and we need to go that direction if because of regulations and changes that we're dealing with more and more in the country and they has a little more strict. So we know this is an Easter, and it's really just trying to get it out there to get some momentum. You guys used to using it so that they regulations change for a good position. So today we're going to kind of do a quick review of just general kind of monochrome, the features, and benefits, the application. Yeah. And then in the second half, we're going to talk about kind of another way you can use this to address some common issues in the industry today. And John and Rugby here kind of going to work while I talk. So they're going to come up here, get ready to start the line chroma, and then I will kind of
43 minutes left.
tolerate
They better do.
go through the product bit. So the first thing I would say with Chroma, the reason we launched it is because we felt we had a very easy to use product. If you don't have an easy to use product, then you're not likely to get paid, you're going to have issues on the job, and then it's a failure for everyone. We did a lot of validating internally, and this has been going on for years, working on this. So it had an easy to use. And one of the big reasons is you don't have to water bottle. And that has become kind of standard today with sanding, just to get a more uniform look or darker appearance. With chroma, because it's water, you don't have the pop floor. So you're removing that set, which moves the process and the dry time. And depending on where you're at in the country, for the time of the year, we know that those dry times fluctuate quite a bit. So, no dry time, the consumption rate, we're talking oil says, water pop, the dry time and the coverage rate will have to do, right? Because we change that surface, the consumption rate goes up. That means dry times. That means just the overall risk of something happening goes up because of saying not being dry enough and then not floating over it. So we eliminate that, we eliminate the longer dry times, and we eliminate that floor sensitivity. So when the floors pop, you may have customers living on the floor, you have to cross your fingers at night hoping that they don't walk on that step like a still on it, because it just complicates the events. We have an additional layer that we have to address, the water pop layer. As for the process, so you saw them roll it on, and the reason they roll on the chroma is because we're water popping with this. This is kind of why we didn't want to call it stain, because we don't want you to think I'm going to do it exactly like oil. Because it's water, you have to apply it a little bit heavier to allow a little bit of time for that to pop, soak in, and get you the right color. If you were to buff it on like you would oil white apply it, it'll be inconsistent because you're not allowing that product to saturate the surface to give you even coloration. So we roll it on. Second step, Robbie took the patent mop here and just carries out and removed some of the excess. And this can be kind of manipulated depending on the environment that you're in. If it's drier, you may remove less. If it's more humid, you may remove almost all of it. So that's the second step, and part of that is also starting the feathering. So when you're removing some of that excess, any of the transition areas and overlaps, you take that patent mop and kind of scrub it. They got to start that feathering. And feathering is not unique to chroma. This is something that is every step that we do in this industry, from straightening, sanding, to finishing, the applying chroma, we feather. That minimizes the chance of something going wrong. Going south on us. The third step is buffing, and that's using just like a white polishing pad. You're almost buffing it into the wood until all the white swirls are gone, and now you're done. That's Crowland. After that set, so that first section that John and Robbie finished, they could immediately stand on this section of the floor. So it's excellent when it comes to coding strategy or exit plans in a house. If you're in a narrow hallway, you can just flip around and work on a stand. And the reason you can is because this is not a fill. This is coloring the floor. And really, that's it. So unlike oil where you have the resin stuff, if you step in it, that footprint can dry and you're repairing. This is very safe in that regard, but I would always recommend movies or something or be careful on it, but it does make coding strategy a lot easier. Time saving and overall, so we don't have the water pop. You can't see my screen, but we have the metal grain raise. So because of the buffing set, that white pad, when John's done, that floor is going to be smooth. So we're basically mitigating any grain raise that you're going to get using a waterborne product. And so after that, when your seal coat over this, nice and smooth, it doesn't even really bring any more grain raise back. So very minimal grain raise. Please. Repairs, you talked about how with the water pop stage, you have that extra layer. Because you don't have that with this, repairs are a little bit more simplified. And one good thing is when you're staying before they see something is questionable, just fix it. Have sandpaper, like you're going to lock it, fix it, and move on. You can't do that with water pop because you got a water pump, let it dry, do all that. So it's definitely a lot more user-friendly. And repairs, if you had issues, you can actually manipulate a lot of the color with just a dry rag or slightly down. So similar old quality like oil, but some of the characteristics make it a little easier. Consistent dry time. So water-based tends to always dry with based on the label. It doesn't have that like 24 hours elongated dry time. So with chroma, no matter the color, you're going to get 2 to 3 hour dry time. And that's consistent. You can have confidence to actually stay a couple hours later, coat the sealer, and get an extra coat done in a day. And lastly, this one is what we're going to kind of talk a little bit more today. Correcting the color, because we know a lot of stain jobs, even doing samples and showing the customer this and that a lot of times the color's not right, like they want to see it darker or totally different color, something like that. And so what we're going to talk about is how you can use from a chance, like our sealers and finishes, to have a very quick and safe fix to address color issues and move on, and not draw the job out or have reschedule future jobs, whatnot. The assortment, so we have 9 colors plus clear, as you can see there, they can all be blended, which is good. And we also, with your pamphlet on the seat, we have a blends chart that looks, gives you blend ratios for dry fast stains, Duracell colors, and some other ones. So that's something we have. We'll continue to grow on. Non-yellowing formula, hey, that's good for now. Tell yellow don't pack, which hopefully it doesn't. No bleed back, so no traditional bleed back like the slow drying conditions, which quick the kind of stain back to the surface. This won't do that. You'll still get staining out cracks, but it's not going to be that oil type that's dry at all. And then water cleanup, always good. You can reuse a lot of the applicators, whatnot. System-based offering or safer. So full waterborne system. Now we have chroma, we have a way to color the floor using the water. We have obviously lots of sealers and finishes. Full waterborne system we can finally offer more customers, as well as a grain guard gold certified. Gold means it's that much more stringent than a regular grain guard. But now we have a full system. So with Rosa, put a clear seal in our Traffic HA family of products. And Traffic Go, we have that grain guard gold system if that's something you want to sell. Low VOC, it is 250 grams per liter, which means it is compliant in the U.S. and Canada. And you can use that in a full gallon with no restrictions on size and everything. Very low odor. Good guys, okay, front row agrees. Non-flammable. This is huge. This is just state. And this is what we're trying to move toward, a more safer system out there. So we don't have all those rags they use could go in a trash can if we had one. I couldn't find one. But non-flammable, so we can get some sleep at night. We're not wondering if we left the job, if the new guy takes 2 days on the job, or you well rags. Everyone understands that technically what's happening there and what did happen. And you see in a lot of our trade publications every month, there's another stain rag fire, another truck up in flames. So we don't want that. You guys don't want that. So having a better option, something safe, is just a shot at it. 10 things. Let's see what we're at. Questions on that, on the application or the just from my demo. So, yes. So the question is, basically, is there alternative ways that you can do this outside of what we're recommending? And the question was, on the removal process, when I pack it off, did I use the buffer with rags under it? Sure. My only concern with the buffer is, depending on your situation, you may not want to remove all of it. And when you have a buffer in the floor, it's very easy to remove all of it. But what we did is we spent years trying to figure out this application. And of course, we started with can we buff it on and buff it off, because that would be the easiest transition for any of us to accept. Do the same thing you do with oil. Well, unfortunately, water and oil are just two different animals, so we have to change it. And we wanted it to be as simple as that. But in the end, we found this process was safe and worked on all colors, no matter how light or dark. But that is just to get it in the market. Of course, you guys are going to find new ways, different ways that's successful. We teach the fundamentals so that you go out and you see success. You have a job that works, and now you understand it does work. I'm going to try some different things. So that's yes. And I better move on. We'll take questions for the end just so we don't get off track. So, same thing with Chrome Light. Why do we want to do this? What does it address for us? And the big one it talks about color not being correct. So there's a disagreement between you and your customer, and they want the floor darker or something like that. Usually today you might do something that is kind of risky when it comes to the overall finishing system. You may have success most of the time, you may have a restamp here and there. So what we're trying to do here is offer a safe water-based system that works to split. There's no long needed dry times. You can address the color in one day and keep moving. So it's a very quick and simple system. The other one is, depending on the company, I mean, we have our samples here, like these here are all, they're custom sealer tones. So if our sealers that we have today are amber seal or natural seal or those, you want something else, you can easily make, a custom mix and offer something new. And this is really important because the trend that we're really moving into is naturals, again, which is awesome, right? That's easiest for us to deal with. Well, what's so different about like 15 years ago when natural was here is it was clear water sealer or oil sand or oil seal. Those are your natural looks. Where today you're getting, when we say natural, they were just kind of saying really light on the color, kind of natural, but it doesn't mean there's no color. So these kind of, to me, fit into that naturally seeing, but offer more colors. So not for everybody, but if you want to offer custom, to set you apart, there's that. And lastly, just upsell opportunity. I mean, I know John here was a contractor for many years, and sometimes somebody didn't want to pay the upgrade to have stain go down. There's another off maybe to offer a color sealer that is easier to do than stain when you have sand and do all that stuff. So there's other opportunity there. So color adjustment. These panels over here where we took 4 or 5 of our standard chroma colors, and then we split it, and on one side we actually did, there's 2 applications on the bottom half of these. You can see that what we did, we take it with the same color that's on those boards. And what you find is we use the same color, you don't get a huge difference. Sometimes you don't want a huge difference, you want to kind of incrementally correct it. You don't want to go too far, and now you're resanding the floor because Someone's not happy. But as we said, this stress is a very common issue. It's safe, quick turnaround, keeps you on schedule, keeps moving. The second one is we talk about color or sealer tones, also an option if you want to compare the same or something unique to your company or dollar. There's a broader range of products. So, number one, some guidelines of those expectations. This is always number one. This is what gets us in trouble, not being on the same page. Again, and sometimes it's hard to be. You don't know how the customer is going to react or see things, but samples. In this goes where we do the original same color, and if they're not happy, still do samples to make sure whatever you're going to do to fix that color, that's that you guys are on the same page. Test first. That's more for you guys. Just test to make sure the color works, what your ratio is going to be, and then log anything. Because what you don't want is that to come back to a job you did years ago at no clue, which you on the floor, you have to try to address the issue. So, what products can be tinted? So, any of our waterborne sealers, except for Classic Seal, which is just way technology. But any of the other sealers can be used to test, and they're all like 1 or 2 color systems, so you can kind of play with that as well. And then for our finishes, so Traffic HD family and White right now. Those 2 families of bikes can be used for tinting purposes. Maybe more in the near future. So some other guidelines. We have Chroma is a 2-part product. So it does have the coloration additives that you add to it. That's what helps lock in the color. It makes it so you can apply it and get on here and coat it with water without all of the other area on it. So that's what the part B is for. But with tinting, we don't need the part B because now we're putting part A chroma into the sealer to finish. So no part B is needed. Compatibility, there's 2 situations within these bonus products. It's whether you're using chroma or if you have dry fast stain down on the floor, so or oil-based stain. Even if that color is off, you can address that doing the same thing. So tinting, it's not just solely with chroma. You can do it with both. Anything outside of our products, obviously, test, make sure it works. Coverage rate, we would just say kind of in general, a 5 to 600. That's still within kind of the range of coverage rates that our products. And that just to keep it something 5 to 600. Go off of that and it should be good. Pot lice, because we're not adding the part B, there is no pot lice unless you're adding it to a 2-component finish core sealer, and then obviously default to pot lice for that product. All right, because they're gonna do a little tinting on the right side of the panels here. But some basic guidelines with this: 1 to 2% on lighter backgrounds, which is what we're doing here, and that is just because kind of the light background, that pigment that you're tinting with is going to stand out for it. So starting with a lesser percentage, so that it looks good. We can tell you to do 10, 15%, but we want to give it to liquid. So we're trying to kind of teach fundamentals of starting low, starting light, know what you're good at, coding, depending if you're low light or T-bar, whatever your preference is. But lighter, 1 to 2%, then 2 to 3%, no more than 3 is what we recommend. And that's for darker backdrops. Maybe something more in this tone, you can go a little bit heavier because that pigment kind of blend in with darker backdrops. Always start light. I just said it's lesser of tinting and work your way up. Again, so you don't go past what your customer expects. Go too far, you're just resanding again anyways. When you do finish, anytime you do finish, we don't really never recommend having finish with color be your wear layer. So if you're going to use finish and tinted, like let's say dry fast stain, that is a sealer as well, so you can go straight finish over that. then intense you're finished, and that goes to the rest of the color. Then always hot coat over a finish with a clear coat so that your wear layer is nice and clear. I kind of mentioned this, that when you tint with the same colors like you did on these panels, you'll see it takes multiple applications. Otherwise, it's pretty kind of blends in with itself. You don't see a big difference. But one thing you can do, and this will kind of make it a little more drastic, is use a different color. So if you're doing this, what Robbie is doing here, this is barnwood, which is like this color. This is barnwood, using 1% in clear seal. And clear seal, so he's using a different color than what this actually is. This is our caramel color. And by using a different tone, you kind of see a little more of a drastic change versus using caramel and take you probably multiple layers. They did that color to change. Some other things with tinting, obviously there's floor prep. Varnishing the floor is, something we talk about in the industry all the time, but that, with heat and friction, that's what really helps varnish the floor, kind of close off the boards in the top, so that when you're using waterborne products like wood, they don't just soak in. Wood is hygroscopic, if I did that right. So it is just like a dry sponge. You add water to it, it just wants to soak it up. So you slick it off, and that allows it to set up a little better and give you better success with application. But I would say like sandpaper, seal plates, things like that, that add a lot more heat to the floor, and you're doing your 100, 120 grade or whatever, will help with that. On heating it up and closing that off. And you can even take it higher than the 120, 150 if necessary. Cleaning the floor. I think next year at NWFA, we're going to do a demo on this hand ego brush. We talk about it all the time as if no one's ever heard of it. But this tool is awesome when you're dealing with waterborne products. This is a close-up of a standard floor that you vacuum and tack multiple times. This is what's actually on the floor. This is that same picture with the Camp Dinko brush. So when we deal with rain rays and that slurry on the floor and just a mess, it's because we're not doing the proper prep ahead of time. Everything plays a part in your end result. And so if you don't have this brush, get one. I don't care for me. Just basically raise the bar on your preparation with waterborne products. Perfect. And then as you saw, the Duncan roll application that Robbie did here, this is, it's another way to do it. Everybody, I'm sure, at keyboard roll has probably done this method. But why we like it for tinted products is because a lot of times with any product color, or just sealers in general, when you put it on the wood, you pour the puddle and you get the shadowing, the tan-out reaction, and that gets locked in, and I have to resand and it's not like that. With a Duncan roll, we're eliminating the pouring of the puddle on the floor. So it kind of gives us better control. Like you don't want to pour out that huge line and then you don't get too big in time and you get a shadowing effect. This allows us to control that. You saw Robbie put it on, just like you paint a wall with like the W kind of pattern, spread it out. And knowing that he's trying to saturate that roller, then you're going to get kind of this approximate coverage rate. When you pour on a floor, Damien with Berticide before this kind of mentioned that when you pour a puddle on the floor, it's inconsistent. And the more inconsistent your puddle is, the more inconsistent your coating is that you will put on the floor. By doing the Duncan roll, you fully saturate that every time, and you have a very defined amount of space that's going to cover. It's just a different way to think about it and to apply it, but it's another alternative. It works great with doing this. And if you're doing any kind of thin application with a roller, you generally just don't get good results when you go thin because the roller overworks the product so much and so many bubbles, and it's so thin it just shocks it, dries like that, fall back. So do any thin applications, T-bar, something that doesn't overwork the products. And we may be done. That's pretty good on time. So just real quick, and I'll open up to questions. So this section here is our caramel chromo. Is clear seal over the top. This is same, but it has 1% of that color in clear seal to help address the color. And this is that same blend, just so the wall blend to show you how you can start getting these custom sealing books. And that is all we got. So let's open it up to questions. There are any? Go ahead.
Well, I've had it in players. Yeah, and I too. They have that little about furthers or some month.
There's the question is how many layers do you do? Technically, you do as many as you want, but we've all seen a bottle or a Coke bottle. It's a little hard to see. So, you know, there's got to be a fine line. You don't want to just keep adding layers. So hopefully, when by the setting expectations doing samples, you can rest it in as set as possible if they did too thick. But in the end, they properly apply urine or waterborne, it's kind of like shit bagel. So when we talk about thickness, it's pretty thin. But just keep that in mind. Thickness. Here we can't with don't low. So we're still kind of validating so the product lines, but likely in the future we'll be able to test more of our products. Which will that from either side. Roller. It will never put that like if I make it have what that okay. It's nice. Roller 3/8 are like any 3/8. Yeah, like the thinking application for. Well, that's gonna be your preference on what you get your finish to look the best with. I mean, our white microfiber roller would be our best recommendation. It's gonna put it down as soon as this. Whatever you're used to.
So we just pay $2. Do you have a wish you a lot more?
And what you're comfortable with. Everything we're recommending, these percentages are pretty low. That doesn't mean you can't go bigger, but get used to what you're doing before you sell it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, you can use. We're not saying you have to use this technique. I mean, some of the more pigmented products were out. There was a lot of learning curve, and so people kind of struggle. So the doctor will just kind of another option, whatever you're comfortable with, though.
Okay, 7.
Anyhow, yeah.
Let's see, get a lot. What? Straight. So they talk against and then I'll work with. Yeah.
I would say it blends really well if you stick within kind of lower percentages. The higher you go, just the more complicated. It may be quicker if you can get it to go down and look good, but if you don't, it's that balance. And because it's water, I mean, if you're doing even 2 coats, I mean, you're blocking one after another for the most part, so you can move pretty quick.
Right.
About the same. The 1%. So the question is, would the changing of our sealers, like these custom tanks, would it be like applying our amber sealer or our ready-to-use products? Similar, but we're not pairing apples and apples. So the tanks that are used in our manufacturing for like the amber sealer are different from these. So there's these percentages of place. Yeah. Very similar application. These application. Sir. Either both will work. And we didn't really cut in or do any of that upon this demonstration. This question was like for cutting a pad or brush. Either will work. The good thing with chroma is, I mean, anything you do by hand, whether it's stairs, the edges, the pantry, any of that, will still get the same color as anywhere you lost. So it's very, we did not show that because it doesn't work. It goes really well. Gotcha. Yes. Yeah, there's flexibility. I think the key with anything we do in this industry is understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's why I say, like, the question about, like, why do I really want to grow? And I always ask the question, well, Would you buff on water when you're water pumping? Why? Well, yeah, you're not letting it soak in. You're not letting it do its job. And that's why you don't buff on your wings, because you need to let it saturate. And that saturation is quick. It's not like we're saying it's out of sit for 20 minutes. You saw that, and they got one after another. What happens really quick. But yeah. Anybody else? Yeah. Swung that. Did it. All right, thanks, everyone. Yeah.